Hey guys, Dave and Len here. This is Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about 3 books of Len's. Actually, I've read all 3 of these. I don't remember them too well other than Thud but the first one is Soldier. I remember this was a really good book. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was about because it was so long ago when I read this, but I read this like when I was in high school, and I really liked it. Thud, everyone likes this book. If you want to read about F-105s, you read Thud, and this one's about F-105s too, going downtown. I remember I liked that one too. You've read them more recently than me, so you can probably give a better description.
These 2 were the only books available while the Vietnam War.
Thud and Going Downtown.
Yeah. Going Downtown is actually the sequel to Thud. First of all, he reviews what happened in there, and then because this one ended with him being court-martialed, and this told the results and everything. I mean, he was Chuck Yeager, Mr. First Man Past the Sound Barrier, was the judge at his trial.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart was on the jury.
Really? Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Wow!
Remember, he was a colonel, so he had to get people of equal or higher rank.
Right. I think on a jury and in a court-martial, though, I think you have a right to have half of the jury enlisted as your right. Like if you're an enlisted man, however, you're an officer, you'd probably want the whole jury to be officers, I would imagine. Yeah.
But one thing is, Herbert, he was the most decorated enlisted man in the Korean War, and he also became an officer, and he was a lieutenant colonel in Vietnam. I think he had these 107 Airborne Brigade.
Oh, 173rd Airborne, I think you mean, yeah.
Yeah, and he got him in shape, because he was shocked to find out these are like the best American soldiers, and they're like avoiding combat, and I said, wait a minute, whoa, we got to get in there, and he witnessed some war crimes, reported. One of the issues was that he was enlisted with a Mustang. I don't know, the Marines call them Mustangs, an enlisted man who becomes an officer. And he had to go up against West Pointers because he reported some war crimes, and the general in charge of the regiment just didn't do anything about it. So he filed a complaint against the general for covering up the war crimes, and boy, did he get in hot water for that.
I'm starting to remember, now that you're mentioning this, it's been a long time since I've read this book.
So it was it is a unique look at warfare in Vietnam, the issues involved in everything. And I found out that after he retired, he went back to school, got a PhD in psychology, became a counselor for police forces and the military. And meanwhile, his main nemesis was later convicted for securities fraud.
Oh wow! So
he got some. His main enemy was removed from command when he threw a dead Viet Cong body off a helicopter. They didn't like that. Actually, I think the issue was that the guy died on the helicopter, and they decided just to save some weight and throw him off. But they're very picky about it. I think they probably wanted, they want the body to make sure the body count was right. So, with Thud, the issue was that he was accused. Well, one of his pilots was accused of strafing a Russian freighter, and he exposed the gun camera.
That shows how ridiculous that war was. I mean, the Russians were supplying our enemies, so what's the problem with him strafing a Russian freighter that's bringing weapons to our enemy? I mean, that just shows how screwed up the political situation was.
Lots of nuclear weapons. Yeah, they don't want to tick them off.
Yeah, well,
needlessly.
They were ticking us off needlessly, and nothing happened. And nothing would have happened if we blew up every Russian freighter that came there. I mean, they would have complained they're not going to start a nuclear war over it, just like we wouldn't start a nuclear war over the fact that they were supplying all our enemies. So,
well, what happened was that it took about a couple weeks, a couple months. Sailors from a neutral ship, I forgot whether Swedish or Canadian, took photographs of the Soviet ship, and you could easily tell that each hull was a different size, And you could also see there's a 40 millimeter battery close by. So it was like, the NVA, while tracking the 105s, probably hit the Soviet ship a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, those charges were dropped, and but I think they had some minor thing like exposing the film was that was another one. One of the things was that after. While he was waiting for the court-martial, he used his spare time to write Thud Ridge because he felt that people didn't know what was going on, and that was true. They didn't know what was going on. And one good thing about Thud Ridge is I developed a lifelong hatred of Robert McNamara. Because remember, he's making comments about Strange Bob that were just classic. They had a pilot named McNamara, and the judge, they would tell him, "Could you tell your uncle Robert to stop giving us all these stupid missions?" And there was some civilian artist who was she was covering him to do artwork, and she said, "Wow, you have Robert McNamara as a nephew?" Oh no, it's just fighter jock humor.
So are there any other books on F-105s? Because I've read these two. I'd like to read more because F-105s had some great missions in Vietnam, like the Wild Weasel missions and stuff,
yes.
where they would take out enemy surface-to-air missile sites and so forth.
I had a Wild Weasel, one just focused on the Wild Weasel.
Actually, I think now that you mention that, wow, this is bringing back memories. I might have read that one, actually, now that you mention it.
Yeah. There's... other books, there's one by Robert Mason called Chicken Hawk. He was in the first Air Cav. He was one of the first ones in Vietnam. And that was, he also became like a professional writer afterwards, because he said that when he asked for his friends, what should I do? And they all said writer. So it's like I didn't declare my profession. I was proclaimed a writer. So I had to do something about it. And there's one called The New Legions. I think the author's last name was Duncan. He was actually a Green Beret. And the hilarious part about it was that he had some gripes about the Vietnam War. And the book was published by a very conservative publisher. And the publisher said, "Wow, we got a guy from Vietnam. Put this book out, and so that everybody will know what they're doing." And the editors go, "Are you sure you want this?" Because the publisher never bothered reading the manuscript. So, "Yes, get it out." And it was like critical of our role in Vietnam. He didn't think we should be there, but otherwise, actually, it was a very good book.
There was a book called A Distant Challenge, which was essentially, there was military, I don't know if you call them newspapers or magazines or whatever, during the Vietnam War, and like different officers and stuff, if they had a battle and things went their way, they would oftentimes write an article about it and post it in this magazine. So it's basically a collection of these articles. It is really good reading, and they're very interesting battles, but there's people who've complained about, they're like, "Oh, this is all propaganda, blah, blah, blah." Well, I mean, these guys, when they write an article for a magazine, they're going to write about the battles they did the best in. They're not going to write about the ones where they screwed up or you know what I mean? So I don't consider it to be propaganda. It's just that they've wrote about their best experiences.
Oh, one thing, this is, he was later criticized. They thought that he was a self-promoter. And he had one scene where they had a wounded guy, and they called up the medevacs, and they could, they're all busy. So he tells the radio guy, "Call this frequency and order a pizza." Okay, where's the pizza? 5 minutes later, a helicopter comes with the pizza. And the guy comes out and says, "Okay, take this guy back." It was like he found like all sorts of screwy things like that.
Is this the book I read where, when the main character, which is Lieutenant Colonel Herbert or whatever, when he was an enlisted man and he first went to Korea, somehow he got in a pitched battle where the Turks were fighting the Koreans and he was assisting them, or he was there or something?
Well, actually, he was surrounded by them. Actually, he left his unit. He found out the Turks were going to the front, so he left his unit to go with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said that later in life, his enemies would try to accuse him of being mentally imbalanced. This is the only time I was really crazy. They said one of the great things about it, when you're surrounded by the enemy, is you just shoot out. You know where the enemy is, so you just shoot away. So...
Yeah, that was a good book. Yeah, if you guys see this, you can probably get it for a reasonable price,
Yeah,
I would assume, if you look around. Soldier, yeah, definitely buy it.
I got it in the public library, and I think I got this at one of those book sales for about like 25 cents. That was a reminder, and it was like worth every penny of it.
Yeah, most of the books I buy are used. Also, these two here, Thud and Going Downtown, these would probably be harder to find, but if you do find them, you definitely want to buy them.
You probably have a better chance of getting Going Downtown, because
this
that's
one here,
more recent.
This one here is from where Bantam Books. They made some good books. They have a book about a paperback one about the British and the Falklands. I think it was called The War in the Southwest Atlantic or something like that. That book was just fantastic. If you're going to read one book about the Falkland Islands conflict, read that one.
Okay. One thing also about Vietnam. I think they recently published, John Steinbeck had a toured Vietnam. He's a noted American author. And I remember reading he had a series in the newspaper, local paper, and that's why I began to love John Steinbeck. And I think they're rewriting, they republished his articles for the newspapers. He has some good stuff about World War II also. So
cool. Yeah, there was another book I liked when I was in high school about the Vietnam War. I can't remember what it was called. It was a hardcover book, and it was kind of like an introduction to the war, and it had some battles and stuff in there. I wish I still had
7 firefights in Vietnam.
No, I have 7 firefights in Vietnam at home. That's a good one, too.
I'm trying to remember, Slam Marshall had one, too. Where he analyzed some battles in Vietnam.
I had a bunch of novels about Navy SEALs, too. There's one, I don't remember the name of the novel. I wish I didn't sell it, because I'd like to buy it again. Well, basically, it's the Memoirs of One Seal, and it was pretty amazing. And he was talking about a fight where one of his fellow SEALs was fighting some other guy who was a non-SEAL, and the non-SEAL was kicking the shit out of the SEAL, so he couldn't take getting his ass kicked, so he lifted his head up and bit the guy's entire lip off and spit it in the river. And somehow he didn't get court-martialed for it. I don't know.
Also, I was thinking Tom Wolfe had some articles, and I think New Yorker magazine, where he interviewed a few pilots. I think he interviewed a few pilots, and they told him all their fun missions.
Yeah, I also like the novels. A lot of these old LRPs, long-range reconnaissance patrol people wrote after the war. Their missions were very interesting too. I mean, they'd go out with like 4 guys and stuff, and do reconnaissance, and once in a while ambushes, and so on and so forth. Another good one was Max Sog, the book. That was really good. That stuff's unbelievable. I mean, they had the highest kill ratio of any unit in the Vietnam War. I think it was like 100 to 1 or something. They would send them into Cambodia and Laos, like 2 or 3 Americans with like 6 to 9 indigenous mercenaries, and they'd go in there, do reconnaissance, blow up enemy trucks on the Ho Chi Minh Trail and all sorts of stuff. And when they get pinned down by the enemy, if they caught up with them and stuff, they had basically an enormous amount of air support to assist them. So oftentimes they were in like situations where it was like hopeless, but there was so much air support they were still able to get them out.
Yeah, some people you criticize or compliment. Americans in Vietnam seem to be, idea was to send out the infantry to find the enemy, then call in an airstrike. So
they did. They expended a lot of shells in that war. I mean, I was reading one book. some artillery regiment, they'd be given orders to like hit this grid square because no one had been there in a while, so they tell them to just to fire a artillery salvo in it. Not even knowing if there might even be enemy there. So it just sounded like a lot of money wasted because artillery shells aren't cheap, and they shot off a lot of them in that war. And
well, the idea is you want to spend money, not lives.
Right. I get that. But at least have some evidence that the enemy's there before you fire, you know what I mean? Because otherwise, the likelihood you just fire blindly somewhere that you're going to actually hit the enemy is, what, 1,000,000 to 1? So, wasted shells for 1,000,001 chance to hit someone is like a complete waste.
Well, also, if you hit the area and if Charlie's in there and says, shit, they're coming, so they book out. So you achieved your purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point, but...
Yeah, because sometimes you use fire by reconnaissance by fire.
Right.
And sometimes it's, you want to waste the ammunition, not the lives.
Some of the stuff they did with artillery made sense, though. Like, if, for example, they were in, like... trying to cross an open area into some treetops or something, or into some jungle, oftentimes they would fire into the edge of that jungle with artillery right before advancing across open terrain, just in case the enemy was there, so they'd at least be pinned down while you're crossing. So that would be a good use of shells.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that case, would it be better to lay down a smoke screen or just put fire in the... right where the guys were supposed to approach, because American artillery is so accurate.
I think in that war, for smoke, they preferred to use white phosphorus, because white phosphorus can kill you, whereas regular smoke rounds are non-lethal.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, that's true. So, all right.
All right, that's all we got, guys. We'll have a new topic for next week. Have a good evening.
All right.